All right. Hello. Um, been quite a while since I made one of these, but I mean, I kind of just make them whenever I feel like talking about something. Um, I recently went to card show just last weekend. I guess yeah, the weekend gone. And at least within my quote unquote scene, I guess I'll just call it a scene. Um, I haven't been involved with it for a crazy amount of time. Probably maybe just under 2 years. Maybe 3 years, honestly. Maybe just under 3 years. I've been involved, and by involved, I just mean basically attending card shows and getting to know people who also dabble in Pokemon, whether it's collecting or reselling or whatever, stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's probably just been under 3 years or something that I've been doing that. And I'd like to think that I'm a pretty attentive person. I would say that I pay attention to the small things, very subtle things, subtle changes, whether it's changes in atmosphere, changes in environment, economic changes, just changes in general. Like when things change, I notice them for the most part. Um and going to these card shows for about 3 years, give or take, over under, I've been noticing that they're changing. They're changing. For starters, they're getting bigger and bigger. They're getting bigger and bigger. Um, First one I attended in probably in the year of 2022 or something. Um, like there was a decent amount of people, and by no means am I some like super veteran who was like there because I've heard stories about like with the London Card Show how like in the very beginning it was predominantly sports cards and there was probably less than like 50 people attending the first few shows, which is very interesting. But at least from my first show, there was a good amount of people. There wasn't a ton to where now like when you go, you're straight up just bumping into people. Like you just you're just always bumping into people. Um, you gotta like navigate and weave, and there's just people everywhere. But at least for my first one, it was it was spacious. You know, I wasn't getting squashed. But now, you know, there's starting to be a lot of people at these shows. A lot of foreign people too. You know, a lot of people from outside of the UK. And it's great to see. It's great to see. It's nice to see. People from other countries. Come to London. To congregate to just do whatever they want to do regarding Pokemon, which is awesome. That's really nice to see. But yeah, that's the first most obvious change. It's much larger now, and I think overall this is great. I mean, it means that because it's become a lot bigger, they actually host shows a lot more frequently now, which is good. I think they're hosting one like every freaking 3 months, which is great for everyone who wants to get involved. Um, when I first went, uh, not to say that there wasn't a good variance of cards, but it was definitely like um the stuff that I personally um enjoyed looking at or seeking out. It was there was less of it there. So your high end vintage, your very obscure stuff. There was a lot less of it there when I was going my first time, my first few times. But now, especially with my last recent show, I've just I don't think I've been like disappointed. Like it's really nice to see them. There's a lot more variants. There's a lot of people are, they're bringing out higher end stuff. Like it's just it's great to see now. The landscape of what's there is a lot larger. Given my first few visits, now it's like I'm seeing cards that I really enjoy seeing. I really want to see. Doesn't matter the grade, doesn't matter whatever. I just enjoy seeing these cards and talking about them. So that's really nice, and that's all a product of the show gaining more visitors or attendees, whatever you want to call it, from abroad. I mean, like even been seeing some people like based around Asia, predominantly Europe visitors, but even some Asian visitors as well, attending, which is really really cool. So that's a massive product of the show getting bigger. Um, but I want to talk about the show and how I sort of perceive Pokemon attending the show and people and just I don't know. This is going to be very very it might even be a little bit incoherent. I might be jumping from point to point. It may not be the most organized in how I lay my thoughts out regarding Pokemon and Pokemon within the UK, whatever you want to call it. But again, these are just all my own thoughts. So, and I want to just preface by saying I don't think there's anything wrong with how people want to go about what they do with Pokemon. It's a brand, it's a franchise. And by all means, if you can make money off something, by all means, we're in a pretty tough economy, so make every penny that you can make, for yourself, for your family, for whatever, you know. So yeah, I just wanna preface that before I start speaking. Um, so I remember in my first card show, um, I remember my first London card show, maybe in 2022 or something. I went and um I was looking around. It's not that I was like nervous or anything, because it's just a card show. But it was my first time just meeting people. It was my first time just meeting people who weren't my friends to just talk about Pokemon. Because that's what I want to do. I wanted to do at least. Um, and I remember um I spoke to some vendors, and this kind of happens a lot now. But they were like, "Hey, like, what do you have in the binder?" And since I'm working on trying to make one of the best binders in the world, that's my goal. There's a lot of like quote unquote grails in my binder, at least at the time. You got a lot of like first ed stuff and a lot of like grail, like vintage grail stuff or whatever. So that was in my binder. So I went to the show, and I would show people, um and a couple vendors, they were like, "Wow, man, this is a great binder," and I'd be like, thank you. It belongs to me and someone else." And they would just be like, "Oh, really?" Like, and the first thing they would say is it for sale?" That's the first thing they would say. Is it for sale? Or like, "Are you selling?" Like, it's kind of funny because like that specific phrase kind of just sticks in my head. Are you selling? And I get asked that question a lot. Are you selling? And every time it's no, I'm not selling. Um, and I guess for me, I'm just an enthusiast. I'm just an enthusiast about cards. I don't know how, and I don't want, and I don't have an interest in making money from Pokemon. I think anyone who can make money from Pokemon, grats to them. You know, like I said, like we're in a crippling economy, make every penny that you can make. But I personally am not interested in making money from Pokemon. I'm not interested in reselling, I'm not interested in any of that. So when I speak to people who are you know, at the show, and they ask to see our binder, and I say, wow, this is great, man. And I say thank you. And then they immediately follow with, are you selling? Are you selling it? Um, you know, it leaves a little bit of distaste in in my mouth. It leaves a bit of distaste for me. Because I just told you that you know, this is like something very important to me. It's like something I'm working on, and you know, your immediate response is, "Oh, that's great, dude. Are you selling it?" Um, Now again, I don't have any problem with vendors at all. You know, vend to your heart's content, make as much money as you can. Um, but it leads me to consider um a slight lack of, I don't know if this is a word, but genuity. I think genuineness is a word. And I don't know if genuity is a word, but yeah, genuity, genuineness, whatever you want to call it. You know, basically quote unquote uh sweet talking. I get a lot of sweet talking uh well, vibes. We'll use that word, vibes. We'll use that word, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, but we'll use that word, vibes. I get a lot of sweet talking vibes from, at least in my very first show. I spoke to several vendors, and they were like, yeah, what do you have in the binder, dude? And I was like, yeah, and it's, you know, it's a bunch of crystals, a bunch of shinies, all that jazz. And they're like, oh damn, this is amazing, bro. It's one of the best binders I've ever seen. Dude, are you selling it? I was just like, no, I'm not selling it, man. It's a work in progress. I'm not selling it. And you know, I can't exactly blame vendors. I can't blame them. They're there to make money. But um, you know, and I distinctly remember at my first show too, there was actually also one vendor who, because I said I'm new, he really like super lowballed. Like I knew, okay, so I knew what like the stuff was worth at the time. And he was like, do you know what this stuff is worth? And you know, just to test the waters, I said no. Even though I knew, I said no. And he he said, like, hey, like, do you want me to look it up for you? I was like, sure. And he looked it up, and like, he gave me like a number that was like 33% of market at the time. I was just like, dang, dude, that, wow, I didn't know that, man. Like that's a lot of money. Thank you. Like, even though it's like 33% of market. Um, and he was like, oh, dude, are you sure you're not interested in selling it? And I was like, yeah, dude. Yeah, it's just a personal hobby for me and someone else. Um, and that specific interaction, that really that one really left a little bit of a sour aftertaste. But moving on, yeah, I'm not exactly, I'm not mad at vendors at all. They're just doing what they're there to do, which is, you know, talk, you know, negotiate, make money. But for me, um, it sort of just veers me away. Me personally, you know, because when I go to this show, um, I'm not interested in making money. Like I really just am an enthusiast. Like I really just, I literally only care about just seeing and talking about cards. I try to make some trades. I mean, if you do have interacted with me before, maybe to try and work something out, you'll probably know that I've said no, I don't sell, I only trade. You probably do know that if you've tried to maybe acquire something that I own. Um, but yeah, I'm just an enthusiast, you know, so I'm really not too interested in like buying or selling. And I buy sometimes, very rarely. I buy sometimes, very rarely, but usually not from vendors because I also don't like bartering. I don't like bartering in any capacity. Um, but especially with Pokemon, I really don't like to mix money with the things that I care about. Um, because like I don't know, it's kind of just like oil and water for me. Like I really don't like mixing money with the things that are important to me. So I tend to just like unless it's something very very significant, I really just try to stay away from like bartering with people and stuff because like it's just such a hassle. It's such a hassle for me personally. I would rather just like source it somewhere online or just I don't know, just not yeah, like I'm not there to like talk money. I'm just not. Um and this leads me to like I said, I know I don't know, my speech, not necessarily my speech, but you know, the overall structure of what I'm talking about might be a little bit jumbled, but um this kind of interaction, you know, where the person is talking to me with the hopes of making money off me. I don't particularly like it. I don't particularly like it. I'm very even though I'm like pretty inexpressive, uh I would like to think I'm very straightforward. And I don't really like the idea of someone speaking to me with an ulterior motive. And again, there is literally nothing wrong with vendors or even doing that, you know, like it's their job. Like for some people it's their job, like they're there to make sales, they're there to make good deals and hopefully win. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's basically the exact same thing as a car salesman. Like you go to sweet talk the customer and hopefully try to lock in a deal, and take home money for yourself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But just for me personally, I don't like being spoken to about something that's important to me when they're just their internal intention is like I want to see if I can make money off this guy. I don't really like that. And of course, that's just business. That's totally fine. That's just business. But that's exactly why I don't mix money with Pokemon because I don't want to make Pokemon my business. Me personally, I just don't want to. Um. So yeah. So that's how I feel about attending shows and whatnot. Like I really just am there for the love of the hobby. Um. Like you know, even though the cards are money, yeah, I genuinely wish that even like the most expensive cards, whatever, gold stars, shinings, crystals, whatever, secret rare this, secret rare that, whatever, uh, Moonbreon this, Moonbreon that, whatever is like valuable. I don't know. I genuinely wish that like all cards were just so cheap, um, and affordable, so that just everyone can get what they want, and everything. I mean, even if all cards were cheap, like people would still look at cards like paper notes. That would just still happen because money comes into Pokemon, so people are just gonna view Pokemon like money. That's just always gonna be a case. It doesn't matter how cheap or expensive stuff is. People buy Pokemon, so people are gonna view Pokemon cards as money. Um, but I do just wish that uh, you know, stuff was a lot cheaper. So maybe people would be less obsessive. Not necessarily obsessive, but I don't know. Just like I don't know the word, but just people would just be less not necessarily controlling, but damn, I don't know. There's probably a word for it. I'm sure there is a word for it. I just wish cards weren't so lucrative. That people could just because people still probably do. I mean, there's loads of people who like still just enjoy cards for cards, but there's also a lot of people who they pick stuff up. They say, "Oh yeah, this is a freaking Grail," and then the Grail is like gone like the next day. It's like, well, I mean, like, you know, yeah, I mean, I guess it's a Grail, but like, you let it go the very next day. Like, what does that mean? I've had some of the cards in our binder for years. Gr- Call them Grails if you want or whatever. Um, but yeah, I just wish they weren't so lucrative. So people weren't. so hyper focused on making money or whatever. But again, that's their job, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But is what I will say is that I do think for me personally, uh, I haven't yet. When I do attend the card shows, when I do attend the card shows, there are and unfortunately this is the case. At least for me, maybe I'm looking in the wrong places. I always try to walk around and I always try to speak to people. But um, at least currently, even at my last show, and I guess it makes sense because the biggest show in the country is going to be the best place to make money. But I struggle to find people who I can just talk about the hobby with, who I can just really just like talk about cards with. At least for me, there's a couple people. There's 100% a couple people that that I've met. There's definitely some people who I've met who I can see like when I speak to them, like they have made it their job or they have made it a big a form of income, but they do like really care. Like they do really care. And honestly, I really respect that. I think in maybe like another world or another time, I could have maybe done that too. I could have maybe just made it like a thing where I just get some slight income, but I still really care. But at least in this current timeline, like I don't want to mix money with Pokemon at all. But there are some people I talk to them a lot. At least when I go to the show, I'm able to talk to them for like I can't take too much of their time because they're freaking like they go to vend, they go to pay attention to people come into their stalls and stuff. So I can't just stand around forever. But when I speak to them, when I speak to them, I can see that they do really care about the hobby. They do really care about the cards. Um, they got a passion. It's not just about the like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I can actually make money off this. Like they do actually care about Pokemon, and I think I really appreciate that a lot. Um, just to name a few names, Last Chansey is a really cool guy. I think so at least. Um, Tim Metapod is a really cool guy. Uh, Chaos Collectables is a really cool guy. Um, I don't know if this guy has like a vendor brand tag name or whatever, like a brand name. Um, but he focuses mainly on Japanese too, of Asian descent. Dude, I wish I knew his name. I mean, I know his actual name, but he has a Rurouni Kenshin profile picture on Instagram. So if you ever see this, then I'm talking about you. I really appreciate your passion for the hobby. Um, 'Cause I'm not gonna say your name, but yeah. Um, but my problem still, it's not exactly a problem, but it's just something that like um you know like if I could work on it, that would be good. And that's um sort of the balance, sort of the balance um between just th- that amount, that kind of person, and just the average vendor who just wants to make money. And again, I'm gonna specify a lot of times. I genuinely think there is absolutely nothing wrong with just solely being a vendor who just like, yeah, I like Pokemon, but like let's keep it a stack. Like, like it's a job to you, and like you're just like you're mainly in it because you like make a bunch of money. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is totally fine. It's just when I attend that show, it would be really nice to maybe just have some more people like that to talk to. Um, and I don't know where I can find him. I always attend the trade night in the hopes that there have been a couple people who, you know, when I leave our binder open, they stop by and we just have a chat. But I'd really like to meet some people who, you know, I could really like, almost like a club. Like I could literally just like talk to them like hours just about cards. It'd be really nice. I I don't know. I think maybe people like at least who aren't children like generally don't really like. I don't know. I maybe that's too blanket term to say, but I think maybe I'm just too big of a nerd, and maybe like other adults around me just like aren't that nerdy. But I feel like that's just not true. Like there's no way. I feel like there has to be just other nerds. But at least the other nerds, I swear most of them are just into like modern these days, you know. But I'm gonna keep being positive about it and hope that I can you know, try to find someone who has a similar level of passion to me, or I could just really just talk about cards with. Um, you know, and if they're a vendor, sure, that's fine. If they're not a vendor and they really just they just come to look at cards, like literally exactly what I do, you know, that'd be fucking awesome. Cause you know, then I can go when I go to the show, like, cause all of the time when I go to the show, you know, I'm usually one like spectating the show alone. Last show, my friend Fayaz, uh, he was with me, which is really nice. It was nice to it was nice to have someone walk around the show with. But Fayez is also essentially a vendor too, so you know he's also sometimes concerned with making money, and you know that's again that's totally fine. Just you know I didn't exactly get to speak to him about you know, actual the actual cards, which is really what I want my objective to start being. You know, I'd really like to actually talk to someone about the hobby, specifically someone who knows my niches. Um, and that would be really, really nice. So, those are just a few of my thoughts. I look forward to the show getting larger. I enjoy, even though I go on my own, I enjoy attending the show. You know, it's really nice. It's nice. It's getting bigger and bigger. Um, you know, people's inventories are getting amazing. It's really impressive. It's really, really impressive. Um, you know, I hope eventually. I did have a talk with one guy, dude. I don't know his name, and he probably won't see this anyway. But I had a talk with a guy before the trade night, collecting I think XY stuff. So I mean, I doubt it, but if you XY full arts, I think he was collecting. So if you end up seeing this, you were really cool too. It was really nice to talk to you. You know, because I don't know anything, I don't know too much about XY, you know, but you know, you were telling me about XY, which is awesome. So I appreciate that a lot. You know, I just love learning about Pokemon, Pokemon cards. You know, that's honestly just what I want to do when I go to the show. So thank you very much. I really hope I can, you know, meet some enthusiasts like myself. It'd be really nice. Do I have any other thoughts? Like maybe I do, but I don't remember. Um, let me think. Let me think. Let me think. Um, I don't think so. If I do, I'll just make another video or something. Yeah, man. So, see you in the next one.